So 6 steps that we can do to help talk to our kids about climate change. So first is breaking the silence. For most of us, climate change is already here. It's right at our front door, whether it's impacted with our homes personally, with the weather changes that are happening, or by friends and family that have been impacted by climate change. But when they interview parents, they find that parents really grapple with fear and worry. They're worried about what could happen, how to tell their kids about climate change, or just saying the wrong things. So it doesn't come up in family conversations. So first, talking about climate change, breaking that silence is important. Talking about it with other adults, including how we feel about it, is also necessary. And that's one reason why we meet monthly, is for us to talk about it as adults, because once we talk about it, we're breaking that silence, and then we can also open it up with our families. Secondly, give your kids the basic facts about climate change. You can make it simple. You can say humans are burning lots and lots of fossil fuels for energy, for planes, for cars, to light our homes. And that's putting greenhouses into the air, greenhouse gases. And those gases wrap around the planet like a blanket, making everything hotter. And then a hotter planet means bigger storms, melts ice. So we see the icebergs melting, makes it harder for animals to find places to live. So it's a problem. This is a really big problem. But there are lots of smart people working hard on this. And there are things that we can do as a family to help. So you can start the conversation by saying something like, but give them the basic facts. You can create a movie that you guys can research, a movie that relates to this, and watch a movie together. You can read books together, go to the library together. So find things within the family that unites the teenagers, even the younger kids, with the older kids and parents together. Third is get outdoors. So, when we say these things, it could be scary for teenagers or kids younger to understand and to easily be scared about it. So don't let them be scared about what's happening to the planet. Explore the outdoors, go outside, whether it's planting a vegetable garden, whether it's composting your own kitchen wastes. Go out there, look at the forests, if you have forests around you. When you travel, spend time outside. Look at the wildlife, look at the bugs, see what their habitats are like, and see how that relationship is with us humans, with nature. And next month, we actually will have One Health talking to us. One Health is a great organization. It's a global organization which unites those 3 components of people, animals, and the environment, and how the 3 of them really do work together and how we can help them be ecologically in unison. So back to number 3, the idea is to help kids love nature, love what's around them, because, at the end, you defend what you love, right? And you have to convince the teenagers, and not convince, but you have to relay to them the importance of being outside and a healthy outdoors. And once they see that, they'll be able to defend it and make action. Number 4 is focus on feelings. There are different coping mechanisms that are out there in the research. And number 4 focuses on emotion-focused coping. And part of that is climate-related anxiety. David and Beto will spend some time talking about that, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about that. But the research I've done surrounding that is to do positive things, do positive activities, spend time in nature, take a break, you and your family take a break. If you are feeling anxiety, take a break, relax, and spend time together. 5 is take action, which is called problem-focused coping, a little different than emotion-focused coping. So there's a great book, and I put the book up there if you guys want to take a screenshot of the book. It's called The Parent's Guide to Climate Revolution by Mary DeMacher. She was interviewed, and basically gives, she's had several quotes when she was interviewed, but the bottom line is that the book gives you 100 ideas for families at all levels of age, time, budget, personalities, introverted versus extroverted personalities. It gives them 100 ideas of actions actions of stewardship for the environment. It could be as simple as composting, picking up trash, to civic engagement, writing a letter, showing up to a local meeting, and then going as far as a protest. So it goes through 100 different actions a family can take to help with the climate revolution. I thought it'd be a good resource to share. And then number 6 is finding hope, and that is meaning-focused coping, about thinking how to frame this problem, this climate change problem, so that we can continue to hope and just not collapse and being cynical about it, or just being apathetic about it, being in despair about it. That's not the goal. There's a Swedish psychologist, her name is Maria Ojala, and she was looking at how children and teenagers are finding resilience to the threat of climate change. And she found one successful strategy that helped the children and the teenagers was to develop trust that others are working on this problem, to realize that none of us are alone, and that to focus on the many benefits of a sustainable future, like more social justice, stronger communities, and better health. That was really important for kids and teenagers to know, to help them to feel hopeful for the future. So these are themes that you can bring up when you're speaking to a teenager about it, to help them not feel despaired about what's happening to the world around us. Are there any questions before I have David present his section? Or even comments, any comments? This is meant to be informal, a discussion, so feel free to, do you have any comments? Not yet, okay. So now let me advance here. So now David will talk about how can we address young people's anxiety around climate change. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya. Hi again, everyone. So yeah, I'm David Wallace. I'm a second-year medical student here at KU Med, and this is a topic that I really find fascinating and I'm really interested in, and pretty passionate in. So yeah, it's how we can address young people's anxiety around climate change. So obviously the climate crisis has a lot of important implications for the health and the future of children and young people everywhere. But at the same time, these populations have the least power among anyone to limit its harm or impact. And this together produces a high level of climate anxiety that is seen in today's teens and youth. So climate change or climate anxiety is a natural response to a real and existential threat of climate change, experts say, and it's becoming increasingly prevalent among high schoolers and even middle schoolers. So I found a study which is attached at the bottom by The Lancet, which surveyed 10,000 individuals aged 16 to 25 from 10 different countries. And they found that 60% of teens were very or extremely worried about the climate crisis, and 84% were at least moderately worried. 75 reported being frightened of the future in regard to climate change. And 83% believe that people have failed to take care of the planet, specifically the older generations. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, climate anxiety manifests how normal anxiety looks like. So this can be worry, this can be guilt, despair, shame, anger. So there's a lot of mixed and conflicting emotions there. Today's youth are frightened by the future implications of climate change, which can manifest as these emotions. So there's really just a general sense of betrayal from the generation before us, to burden the damage done to the planet, and also just this perpetual sense of impending doom. While I'm not specifically a teenager, I am a young adult. Just a couple of years ago, I was a teenager, and 5 years ago, I was still in high school, right? So it's a unique position of being a young adult, but also serving as a mentor and a leader for younger people in my own generation. So I kind of can experience these emotions myself, which is why I'm so passionate about it. So yeah, next slide, I believe. Yeah, next slide, please. So this article I thought was really interesting. It really focuses more on an educational approach to addressing climate anxiety, but I think there's a lot of takeaways that a parent or a mentor or a coach for young people can also take with them. But yeah, there's 5 ways that can address youth's climate anxiety. Next slide. So the first one, and Dr. Bhattacharya kind of alluded to this in her talk as well, but first it's just important to listen and validate the emotions of our teenagers. If a student doesn't have the chance to talk through their questions or concerns in a safe space, they run the risk of feeling even more isolated and feeling more discouraged. So educators and parents should validate these teens' emotions around the issue. And even if it doesn't align with our own emotions, we should show compassion and genuine curiosity to really try to understand the extent of our teenagers' emotions around this subject. Next slide. Second, and kind of on the same page, it's really important that we provide spaces for teenagers and young people to gather with like-mindedness or those that are experiencing similar emotions or feelings. When students feel connected to others, they're less likely to feel isolated in their distress and are more likely to take action, feel motivated to address the climate crisis. Specifically, I mean, here at KUMC, we have the Climate Change in Medicine Student Interest Group, and that's been an outlet for me to really talk with people with similar ideas and similar worries and find solutions with our own community. And it's a really great outlet for both quelling the anxiety that I might feel around climate change, but also finding tangible and real solutions. Next slide. Additionally, and Dr. Bhattacharya also mentioned this, but it can't be said enough, but it's really important for students to connect to nature. Research shows that spending time in nature can just reduce stress in general, especially they found with climate anxiety specifically. So if students have opportunities to maintain a school garden or even simply go for a walk in the woods, they can develop a connection to and a love for the natural world. And they may also feel like they are more inclined to find a solution for climate change without the despair or the gloomy aspect of this crisis. Next, you can help students take action to promote sustainability through providing tangible solutions for their own lives and communities. So even just these small changes can make climate change feel less overwhelming and provide a sense of agency for our students and young people. For example, students could take charge of recycling or a compost program. They could petition school officials to install solar panels on buildings or write letters to elected officials to share their support for conservation issues. So really, this is something we can do for as educators, but also as just parents, just providing our kids an outlet for living sustainable lives and just helping them find these solutions on their own. So the last piece of advice that Education Week provides us is the idea of weaving ideas for climate change action through into school subjects. So whether that be cooking and focusing on sustainable foods or recipes, art, expression of our emotions around climate change, or social studies, just talking about the geographical and political landscape that climate change will produce and has produced. There are many ways to promote learning and curiosity in climate topics through this interdisciplinary approach that doesn't just focus on the hard facts that can often just be so fear-provoking. Okay, next slide. So just some final thoughts. This isn't a part of the article, but more of just my own advice or my own experience. But one thing that I would recommend as adults in calming younger people's climate anxiety is just to show that you care about this topic and you are doing things in your own life to address it yourself. One of the most frustrating and discouraging sentiments that can sometimes just be perpetuated by conversations like this is that climate change and youth, climate change is both the burden for the youth to bear, but also our problem to solve. But by leading as an adult, you can also inspire young people to act and show that it's not just the younger generations who are actively trying to solve the crisis. So that can be initiating recycling in your own home, supporting politicians who promote green or eco-friendly agendas, or just educating yourself on environmentalism. You can really just show young people that we are all working together to address climate change. And that's the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me specifically before we continue on?
So very good thoughts and presentation for Shelley and David both. So so these are, we discussed the problems and also some very good solutions. But these are more addressed to for like teachers or parents or teens. So what can we do, or what are we doing to take this message out of this room and actually spread the word to the parents or the teens who can actually work on this?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think at least what I would say would be to incorporate into your life whatever way is feasible and manageable for you. So if you have kids, right there, there's a solution. But I don't have any children, but I do have a nephew. So that's something that I'll be trying to do in my own life, is providing them an outlet to talk about, address, and think about climate change. So I think in whatever way you can incorporate into your life.
Yeah, I have
Dr.
a very
Bhattacharya,
good
do you have any thoughts?
very good answer.
Sorry.
And I have a suggestion here, like if we can collaborate with, or we can talk to the schools or the churches where we can reach out to the parents and the teens and send our message over there. That will be great.
That's a great, make sure I'm not muted. Yeah, that's a great idea. You know, perhaps we can form like a team, you know, of the people of this group, because
Right.
I've tried doing that, you know, I have two daughters, one is 13 and one is 6. And I've gone to both schools because I would love to start a composting program at both of those schools in the cafeterias. And I would also like to reduce waste. There's a lot of food waste that happens in the lunchrooms. I volunteer once a month for my 6-year-old, my first grader. And every time I go, they're required to take a full tray of food, meaning a complete meal. It's a protein, a snack, a fruit, and a drink. And every time I go, so much is thrown away that hasn't even been touched. You know, full cartons of milk that hasn't even been opened, fruit bananas that haven't been touched, sandwiches that the wrapper hasn't been touched, and it's all just being thrown away on styrofoam trays. And we all know what styrofoam does to the environment. And these are thousands of kids in our school district right now. But it's been tough, even speaking to the food superintendent. I've been trying to get a hold of him for 2 years with no luck in getting a meeting with him. So maybe we can form even a discussion group of, where do I go next? You know, do I go to the Blue Valley School? Like, he is the Blue Valley School District, this food, the chief of food. I can't think of, food superintendent is his official title. But if he's not responsive, what can we do? You know, because I can't give up. I won't give up. But it's like, and if the principals, I've gone to both principals, and both are saying, well, we'll look into this, but it's been 2 years and we're not getting anywhere. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we, like, when we're trying to do things, but we're hitting challenges, maybe come back to this group to think of ideas to.
Yeah, right. We will have to think about ideas, like and work around this. Like, what could be an effective way to address this? On like taking like baby steps, not like trying to do a lot in one time.
Mhm.
and we need to think about it. And if I have any ideas, I will definitely share with you,
Sure.
the group. Yeah.
How should we share ideas like this, like successes that we have had and challenges that we're facing? What would be a good platform to, like, is email the best platform, or should we have like,
I think social media these days is the best place where we can form like a closed group, like and then sharing our experiences over there. And we
okay.
are having I think we will have this meeting every month,
Mhm.
so we can do that and share there. And I mean, yeah, anytime email is the best. Like if I have some good idea, I can share it to the
Yeah,
group.
yeah. What social platform do you guys all use? Like, I don't use Facebook that much anymore. Do you guys have one that you prefer, that you would check for something like this?
I mean, yeah, Facebook or Instagram are the most popular ones.
Do you
Uh,
guys use Instagram?
yeah, I recently made one page for my sustainability food thing.
Oh, okay,
So yeah, that's easy to make. And then if we can invite people to like that, and we can share our success stories and ideas, and we can I mean, like invite people who are like on good positions, like the connections, where the connections we can use and are effective, can be effective.
okay,
So we can talk to our network, connect people over there, and then just go from there, start from there at least.
okay. Do you guys all, how about the rest of you? Do you all use Instagram? Shuba saying no.
Only WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I use WhatsApp too. Yeah, yeah. How about the rest of you?
I use Facebook. Hi, everyone. This is Athenas. And I'm also just thinking, I mean, I don't have any children myself, but I'm assuming it could be kind of difficult to start like changes within the school without having like more parents involved. And so I don't know if there's some of those platforms that are available for parents of a school system that have a group, like a parents group, or even being able to reach out to the school board, because they do help influence any changes that occur. And it may be that they identify some schools where it would be easier to implement. We don't know everything that's going on, right? In a school district, but there might be some opportunities where they could provide some leeway, as well as getting teacher support. I bet finding those teachers that are into science or health or other ways that it doesn't always have to be associated directly with climate change, but it may be that they are wanting to do some sort of opportunity for kids to be more engaged, to learn more, and they could also be a strong force to advocate for some of these changes, whether they start small or they want to do a full collective project. But just thought I'd share some of those ideas.
Mhm. It's interesting you say that, Athenas. By the way, thank you for coming, Athenas and Jayla. So when I was there 2 weeks ago, one kid was throwing away her sandwich, her hot, it was a cheeseburger, I think. It was completely wrapped. So I said, why don't you save it and take it home and eat it tonight? So she wanted to do that. So then one of the cafeteria teachers had come, ends up being the art teacher. She came by and she said, oh, no, we can't do that, because it would be a liability for you to save your burger in your backpack for 3 hours when school ended. Mm-hmm. So it had to be thrown away. But later that teacher came to me after school and said, I'm glad you brought that up, because it made me think of what we need to do, that this is a perpetual problem, because she's there every day. I'm only there once a month. But it made her think, Athenas, that this is not right, that we should not be throwing away unused sandwiches. in any food, right? And there should be a way to be able to bring it home. So I think the teachers is a great start. And I'm glad she came up to me later and she was grateful that it kind of planted a seed, you know what I mean? So maybe I can talk to her about getting some teachers together, maybe some other cafeteria helpers together. And then one of Shuba and I friends, she told me last week there's a program called Muffins for Kids, right, Shuba, in Olathe, maybe Shawnee Mission School District, where they actually
I
save
think
the kids food. Say it again.
Usha was telling you about that.
Yes, yes, right. One of our mutual friends, right? So looking into how other school districts do it too is helpful. But yeah, that's great. But back to social platform. So are we thinking
Yeah,
Instagram?
for our
WhatsApp?
organization, Cleaner Now, we utilize Instagram. You know, other methods that we've utilized before is really looking at the youth leadership programs within the school system that can really take that information, right, collectively to the board, the school board, and put a project together saying why this is important, why we want it. And once you have some engagement from the school, from the students, to be able to put a project together and then bring it to them, sometimes it's more likely for them to kind of consider it. But you also got to remember there's a lot of disinformation in a lot of schools. And so that also plays an integral role in who wants to move in what direction. But I think planting those seeds, like you mentioned, Shelly, are important, and identifying like a youth leadership, a youth internship group or a youth group that can move that along also with it inside, because they are in there in that system and they can start making that change from within. So it's just another thought of some of the work that we've done around air pollution and the impacts to health, where kids get involved and then they put a project together and then they bring it to their elected officials, to their school, where it gives them that additional power, right? Where it's like, it's not just putting the project, but now we're in front of them and you get decision makers in front of them, and it creates this other movement of how do we approach these things differently, right? Than just this is what we want, but actually then being participating in the whole process.
Right.
Okay.
Very good idea, Beto. I will also add to this that KUMC is a very strong brand, because we are not only educational institute, but also hospital system. So if we can involve someone from the hierarchy, like higher level, to spread this out and to approach them, and then that will be more, impactful, I believe.
To join the Instagram group, you mean?
No,
Sonali?
no. The approaching the school systems, like what
Okay.
Beto said, yeah.
I see.
So if we approach them as like we are approaching from KUMC
Mhm.
system, then they cannot like totally
Right.
disregard us.
It's
They will
valued
listen to
more.
something. Yeah, valued more.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Okay. One last quick question before we go to Beto's talk is, I already have an Instagram page about sustainability. Should we just use that same Instagram? Because that has about, I don't know, 50 followers already. It's not that big. I'm not on there very often. Or should we build a brand new one on sustainability also?
So what's the handle? I mean, what's the name of this Instagram page?
It's called Sustainable Shelly.
Okay, so it's like name is very important when you're opening
Yes.
this page, because this is the first thing
Yeah.
people will address. So I will suggest, I mean, it's just my suggestion, then if we give a name like which
Okay.
in one word is projecting what we are, like
Okay.
adding KUMC to that,
Okay.
that will be more helpful. And we can, I mean, you can, if you are making that page, you can ask all of your followers to join, I mean, like
Sure,
that page
sure.
too.
But I would say not to put KUMC, because this includes KU Lawrence and the community. Like Beto is with Clean Air Now, he's not KUMC.
Okay.
So
I
we
mean,
can come
whatever,
up with
like,
some ideas. Yeah, we'll come up with
yeah,
some.
some good names, like
That's
catchy
great.
names. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you all. Okay, so Beto,
Can I share my screen?
absolutely. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think the presentations before this one really covered a lot of those health anxieties, right? The health anxieties associated with climate change and how do you address those issues, right? So I wanted to take a little bit of approach of when we talk about climate, health, and environmental justice, and the communities that are most impacted by the climate crisis as well, because they don't often have the same resources as other communities. And so when we think about who is being impacted the most, we know a lot of our youth are impacted. My teenage son has educated inhaler all his life. So to him to understand what the impacts of climate change are, is that we talked about the air pollution issues, right? And just for them to understand that is what has caused a lot of these respiratory issues across communities, right? Not just the most impacted, but even in communities that are well off as well, right? That asthma is a contributor, has been, from the air pollution. But before I start, I wanted to share this video, which I think you all can also share it. And it may be a good way also to engage the teenagers, is to really dive them into like the root cause of issues without being too overwhelming them, right? We know that it's sometimes it feels like a conversation that we cannot have, because a lot of us that have been doing climate justice work for a long time have, continue and want to make sure that the planet that is left behind is in a better place, that our communities are in a better place. But I wanted to play this video for you all real quick, just something, and then I can share with you all, and you can share with your teenagers as well. Can you see this?
Okay, so this is a city. Here are all the people living in it, people of all different colors, ages, wealths, and incomes, except they don't all live together in the same place. They're separated into different parts of the city by what color they are, what language they speak, and how much money they have. And those different parts of the city look quite different. The parts that are whiter and wealthier tend to have green spaces, grocery stores with nutritious organic food, and of course, some money to buy it, and are often far away from pollution-emitting freeways. The parts that are poorer and more diverse tend to have industrial sites, heavy-duty diesel-polluted ports and highways, and hazardous waste, all things that the city relies on to run properly, but that heavily pollute the air and water. And even if they had those grocery stores with nutritious organic food, most residents there couldn't afford it anyway. How did this happen? Well, this segregation can be traced back to race-based zoning and housing policies, but it wasn't always as deliberate as plain old racism. Some separations can simply be traced to poor land use planning. And as a result, these residents of the same city live very different lives. Say the city realizes it has an emissions problem. It comes up with a plan to reduce air pollution, plant more trees to suck up the carbon, or start a cap and trade program. But those trees get planted in the neighborhoods that are already green, and the factories that are spewing toxins into the air just buy more carbon offsets and keep spewing their toxins. The benefits of these programs are enjoyed by the communities that are already doing just fine, and the communities that were hurting most from all that air pollution, well, they're still hurting. This isn't just an imaginary city. This is the story of real cities all across the US, where people might live in the very same area code, but their race, ethnicity, or wealth and income bracket causes them to experience wildly different quality of air, water, and life. In fact, it can even mean that they also experience different deaths. That's how serious this stuff is. This kind of inequity expands far beyond cities, too. Rural areas are full of commercially valuable resources like oil and coal, and they're also home to indigenous and low-income communities. But when those resources are extracted, those communities don't see any of the money, and they end up with all the air and water contamination that's left over from the extraction. And we even see this injustice on a global level, like in small island nations that are forced to directly confront the consequences of rising sea levels, but haven't played any significant role in the industries that are causing climate change. These peoples are sometimes forced to flee their homes because their land is literally going underwater. But the very states that did play a hand in creating climate change don't have migration policies to accommodate them. So when we talk about environmental justice, we're talking about how we can try to break down and reimagine a system that's built up on these inequities, a system where those who are already disadvantaged because of their race and economic status are made poorer because they're unable to profit from the resources that the world depends on and are made sick or worse by the environmental contamination that comes with extracting those resources. Social inequities are intimately tied to the environment. That's why social justice is an environmental issue too.
Give me 1 second here. Okay, so you can see my slides. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to show that because, can you see my screen? Yes. So yeah, I wanted to show that because, you know, when we think about the communities and the health of our youth and the kids and the families, right, it's not equally distributed, right? The harm is not the same in every community. And I think this is a good video that you can all use as a resource to share, to really, you know, dive deep into that, because a lot of students have also mentioned, well, not all students in our classroom have the equal education, right? And some of them, you know, might have, those that have more resources are also the ones that get invited to be in more academically inclined classes, right? Not all the time, but most of the time that's the way it is, right? And so, and we just wanted to show this video because I'm sure all of you have seen communities like this, and I've heard from others that they have never experienced any of this. So I'll get into, I had this other video, but I won't show it. I'll just share it with you all. You can look at it as well about environmental justice in the United States. But I did want to talk about those threads that you all mentioned, Shelley and David, around climate change, right? And the threats that we see are, there are more days of extreme weather patterns, whether it's heat or flooding, more vector-borne diseases. But there's also the threats from officials or elected officials with climate disinformation, right? And this can actually be very harmful for our children when they are growing and they see the parents as a role model while there's someone else telling them things that aren't necessarily the truth, right? And so we also need to be vigilant in those spaces, because what we've seen and also is that there's a lot of people involved in climate change, but if they don't understand the root causes, it can continue, even if they support climate plans and things that can address those issues. But if they don't have no foundational structure behind it or how they're going to achieve that, it can be problematic even for their own children, that they are saying, we are here for the future of my daughter, or my future of my son, etc. So it's always really good to make sure that the kids also know this information. And like, this video is not overwhelming, right? It's really straightforward, really easy to understand. So I do want to share that as something, and, you know, our organization is an environmental justice organization. So we really focus on the root causes of the issues. The mental health and well-being, you know, who is it that's already suffering from the impacts of pollution, right? It's not always, it's not everyone, right? Some are impacted more than others. And these issues, although a lot of youth across race are struggling with understanding of the impacts, we also know that in low wealth communities, there's a lot of energy insecurity. It affects the children, their household, they're struggling to survive. It affects their education, right? So we need to identify where when we create youth groups, that it's intentional, bringing diverse communities together to be able to learn from each other, that our kids are intentionally trying to also understand and how to support those that are going to be left behind or not going to have the resources to adapt. You know, this is also calls from systemic stressors, right? The climate change. These are things that are added to this, right? Like I said already, the communities at greater risk for mental health are those that are low income, but it includes everyone, right? But they are the ones that have the least resources to come back or bounce back. Children and youth, climate change is creating, we know that it's creating a lot of risk for children and adolescents. We also hear a lot of that some don't would rather not have children, right? And this is also that education that goes behind this, right? Because we also know that there's a lot of disinformation of, well, if the climate crisis is doing this, you should not have kids. There's too many people in the planet. Well, this same information is coming from the same fossil fuel agenda, right? Saying, don't do that because it's your fault, right? Putting that on community. So to us, it's very important that community members, the youth understand all of this, because it's not that easy for just someone to bounce back. And so these are just some protective factors. Some communities have access to protect them from the stress of climate change, such as safe housing, adequate nutrition, education, and access to nature and sense of belonging, as you all mentioned, is very important, right? And when people can relate to their struggles or not relate to any struggle, it allows them to be more involved also, because, you know, if someone is part of a group that's working on to address climate change, they're going to move together. But when they exclude others, they exclude the people that are being harmed, you know, it creates this space of where, well, it's just about us and climate change. But what about the other groups that are also mobilizing in Brown and Black communities, youth leadership groups that are moving forward, right, to make sure that they can avert the climate crisis, right? Because they know firsthand, because they have been experiencing it all their life. Their parents haven't been experiencing the injustices of environmental injustice and the climate crisis. Next slide. And so, you know, just one thing that we can do with our kids also is just think about that neighborhood, write down things and places in your community that impact your health and wellness. You know, look for places where like things that are good for health and wellness are nature, right? Hiking, the outdoors, or it might be a community center, or it might be an asset in the community, something that can really provide those additional support system to them. And so, but this is not true, again, for every community. Not every community has a safe park, has a place to go and enjoy, right? Under a freeway, there's a park and they're breathing all this pollution. It's not safe for them. So I just wanted to share that. And, you know, when we think about climate change, this is what we all reimagine, right? Every city across the country that would look like this: solar powered, green energy, regenerative agriculture, free transportation, really nice, right? But how is it that we get there collectively at all levels, right? That it's equal across the playing field, right? That it's not just certain people that benefit from these amenities. And I just wanted to I added this slide here, you know, I think also when talking about climate change. So this is why I wanted to focus on this a little bit, about talking about climate change affects people's lives. And the way it's communicated to them and the things that they are hearing can really cause conflict, which actually makes them, you know, more scared of the issues, right? And some of them, I just wrote these, I put these here about, you know, there are people that are guarding the status quo, right? They have changed their tactics from saying, oh, that the diet of climate science to the strategies such as deflection, for example, are getting us to focus on our own personal carbon footprints, rather than really looking at the huge role of big oil, gas companies, the utilities, the polluters, in this delaying climate, right? They're just delaying the climate action. So it's really important for our youth to know this. I mean, we all want our children to be smart. We don't want this information to be coming from different sources, and it's right in front of us. We see it every day. And so to me, as a father, it's very important to know that my kids have this information. Otherwise, they're being misled. And how do we address those issues? And, you know, other words, I know that you heard of greenhouse gases. And, you know, this is, you know, there's other words that you can use with students to understand more broadly who is impacted and how, because greenhouse gases are heat trapping pollution, right? Kind of creates, like Shelly mentioned, that blanket around everyone, or I think you mentioned that, but I saw the greenhouse gases. It creates this like a blanket. However, it is associated with air pollution, and that is the cause of climate change, right? Pollution from the fossil fuels, the extraction and all that. So just thinking of different words that we can utilize. And this slide here is just the false clean energy solutions that we hear a lot about, right? of like net zero and land and carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration from trees is something that is good, right? It's natural, right? It does happen. But when you want to invest in technologies that have not succeeded and they're proven to not work, it is a problem because essentially they are not willing to give up their profits for our youth or for the communities that are going to be that are here after us. And this is just another image, a cartoon about net zero and carbon offsets, which is something that I'm sure a lot of youth and a lot of you have also heard in the media by our elected officials. And then I think one of the slides showed about, planting trees. Planting trees is great, right? I think, we really embrace also nature and making sure. But through these programs, what is happening is that people think, well, we plant trees, we're going to reduce pollution, but we need to look at the root cause, right? And so just wanted to share this, and I am okay with you all looking at these slides and taking them and looking at these videos on how to really bring the message home where you feel like, you know that you are not contributing to the disinformation, the things that are really happening that are causing harm, more harm than good. And that is actually a mental health issue, right? You're causing harm to people in a way that you're not being honest about what's happening. And this is just another slide of some of the things that we use as principles and to get us when we're making decisions for, or we're at the decision-making table with others and saying, hey, we need to look at all these issues and make sure that communities that are most harmed are at the center of these discussions. And then I just wanted to just close with this slide. We think about this in a lot of ways. Not everyone has the same education. Not everyone has the same health resources, right? So here we can see equality, equity, then we have justice. But then what does that mean beyond justice? That we have an ability to move forward, and it can be unknown, right? How we're going to move forward. But the thing is that we don't want to continue in the systems that have oppressed us for decades and hundreds of years, right? So just wanted to share these visuals that can have like a meaningful impact on teenagers as well as they look at this. Thank you. And I missed a lot of pieces, but I can answer questions.
Thank you so much, Beto. I know it's 1 o'clock, and I want to thank you all for coming. I want to put in the quick QR code for you guys that have to leave. So please just scan that with your phone, and that should take you to the evaluation for today to help us build future projects and to optimize them. So please fill them out, fill the evaluation out. Do we have any questions or comments from our group?
So, Beto, very nice presentation. Is it possible for you to share the links of the videos you have shown here so we can share with others?
Yes. Yeah, I'll share them with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Shelly, you also shared a link for a survey, teen survey. If you can share that too, it will be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. This was great. We look forward to, and then we have, here we go. Upcoming events, February 20th, mark your calendars for the next one at noon, same format. One Health will be coming to present. They're a global organization, and they'll talk about their impact on climate change and health. And then on March 29th in Lawrence, it will be a hybrid session. So if you can't go, it's okay. In the evening, it's a climate change teach-in. Really a nice space for all of us to get together and discuss climate change with panelists, etc. We'll keep you updated on all that. And David is in charge of our website. So you all have received that website through the email. So it's the google.com website with community conversations. David, if you want to put that on the chat, you're welcome to a link to it. All right. Well, great. It was good to see you all.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Stop sharing. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.